Good morning, everybody. His Excellency, the Ambassador to South Korea, Mr. Shin Bong-kil, the Deputy High Commissioner, British government to India, Andrew Iyer, he has just left. DGP Shri Sanjay Beniwal, he has also just left. Mr. Kamal Jadhav, Commissioner, Municipal Corporation, Chandigarh, and CEO, Smart City Limited, Chandigarh. Shri Janardhan Prasad, Director, Urban Transport in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, Urban Affairs, and Shri Lalit Jain, Special Secretary, Department of Finance, Government of Himachal Pradesh, and our host, Shri Ravi Gupta, Founder, CEO, Elets Technomedia. I'm very pleased to be amongst you this morning because I believe the issue which we are dealing with is very important. Of the 7.7 billion population world over, roughly 50% lives in urban areas. And this proportion is growing day by day. This puts urban infrastructure and services under huge stress. And that makes us, requires a lot of effort to cater to the growing needs of the cities and the population living in these cities. As I said, the urban population is growing. It's growing along with the overall population growth, and it's growing also because of the migration which is happening nowadays. It's a huge phenomenon of the modern times, and it's happening because of the prosperity, general prosperity, which is seen everywhere. And as prosperity grows, people want to enjoy better facilities which are naturally available in urban areas. And people do move from rural areas to urban areas. Besides prosperity, there is another reason behind this, which I believe is significantly contributing to migration, which is the mechanization of labor in rural areas, particularly agriculture, and that releases a lot of labor from, labor force from agriculture. And somehow, while people are seeking employment, they tend to move to cities have better opportunities for employment. I believe there's another phenomena which contributes to this migration, which is the sharp distinctions of caste and creed in the rural areas. I don't mean these distinctions are not present in urban areas, but somehow I feel these distinctions are much more visible in the rural areas, and somehow when people move to urban areas, there's a certain amount of anonymity in the city life which drives people to move into cities. Because of this migration, the number of mega cities, as has been said earlier also, is rising day by day, the world over. And most prominently, it's happening in the growing economies, the developing economies like India, China, etc., etc. The DGP also pointed out that India is one of the countries where megacities are found in large numbers. In the coming decades, 90% of the urban expansion, people believe, this probably is the estimate of the World Bank, will be in the developing world, and 9 out of the 10 megacities will be found in the developing, urban megacities will be found in the developing world. Now, these cities are occupying only a small proportion of the total area of the earth. However, the contribution of the cities to the economy is much more larger as compared to the area which the cities occupy. It's estimated that about 80% of the global GDP comes from urban areas. And naturally, the resources which are utilized in the achievement of this GDP are also very huge. About 60 to 80% of the energy consumption happens in urban areas. And of course, 70% of the carbon emissions also happen in this particular area, that is the urban areas. So that brings out the need for transformation of the city life and the urban areas. Incidentally, the United Nations have come out with something called Sustainable Development Goals. The former chief of the IMF is on the record saying that the emerging economies should not be hiring too many of consultants because much of what the consultants are going to recommend to you is already available in the documents relating to sustainable development goals. What I mean to say here is that this framework for development is quite comprehensive, exhaustive, and therefore, when we are talking about urban transformation, we can look into those documentations and take help from there. One of the first things which comes to mind when we talk about urban transformation is about the infrastructure facilities which need to be provided in the cities. As the DGP also dwelt upon, and the Commissioner also said something about this, we need to have safe, affordable, and accessible transport systems. Not only transport systems, we need to have overall public safety into focus and to the extent possible, we should be we should be putting our efforts to prevent things like that we have seen recently in the newspapers, like the Hyderabad incident and the Unnao incident. A few days ago, there was some reports from Chandigarh also where some similar thing has happened. And that puts into focus the role of our policing agencies, the administration, which needs to be into greater focus. With the increasing load of population, we also need to gear ourselves up and help provide municipal services like water supply, sewerage, waste management, etc., etc. The Commissioner dwelt on this quite elaborately. We also need to focus on urban planning and management, both planning and management. Clean and aesthetic environment, of course, is very important for providing good city life to the citizens, to the people who are moving to urban areas. Public safety, of course, as I said, is important. This needs to be focused on. Integrated policies which would, around which we should have our plans, which tend to address inclusion, resource efficiency, resource use efficiency, mitigation, adaptation, climate change, resilience of, and dealing with disasters. All these things are important, and when the authorities do look at urban planning, they need to take these things into consideration while having their plans. Energy use is something about which we should be very very concerned in the sense that this puts very heavy load on the resources which we have, and those resources are by no means inexhaustible. And if we exhaust them at a very fast pace, we can think of what will happen to our children and grandchildren. And therefore, to make our cities sustainable, we need to reduce the use of energy in of course, cities also. I like to say here that it makes a lot of sense to make use of clean energies and renewable energies. India imports a huge amount of hydrocarbons to the extent of around $110 billion. Now that's a huge amount. Besides being a cost to the economy in rupee terms, dollar terms, it's also a cost on our environment. Because hydrocarbons do pollute a lot. And if we can change over to cleaner energies like solar energy, etc., I believe it makes a lot of sense to me. Besides being clean, they are also very, economically, good for us. One of the issues which fast urbanization has thrown up is that of the slums coming up. When we make our plans, the public authorities make their plans, they often ignore the marginalized sections of the society. And that leads to mushrooming of slums and also unauthorized colonies in violation of laws and planning norms. So this is something which is important, and the public authorities, while making their plans, while making urban planning, need to address. The last thing which I like to dwell on is that we have a lot of heritage available everywhere, and we need to take care of that. That cultural heritage is both built and natural. Chandigarh is a city which is of recent origins, though it has built heritage also. Though of recent origin, it has a lot of natural heritage, and it has taken good care of that heritage. Similarly, I believe urban planning people should be, able to take care of the heritage that helps. Rajasthan has exploited their heritage commercially very well, and that's helping them. There's no reason others cannot make use of their heritage, including Punjab. Like in Amritsar, 2 hotels, one previously and one recently, have come up on the properties which are heritage properties, old properties like Havelis, etc., etc. So in the context of urban planning, and this thing can be considered and taken care of. In the end, before I take my seat, I must thank the Elets Technomedia, Mr. Ravi Gupta, Ms. Priya Jadhav, Mr. Kamal Jadhav, who invited me to this conference and allowed me to share some moments with you. Thank you very much.